Hi, I'm Dennis with TeraFlex.
Here we are super duper excited to show you our adjustable spare tire mounting kit. This new mount offers affordability and added tailgate support. There's in and out adjustability for reduced leverage on the tailgate. It even has vertical adjustability to compensate for the tire size and bumper design. And an easy, no drilling, no wiring brake light mounting thing. There's no wiring, no drilling, it's affordable. You're gonna tell them, Dennis, you gotta tell them, it's people! It's people! You gotta tell them!
I'm sorry.
People!
I'm sorry you had to see that. It is affordable and it does add a lot of strength.
People!
All those things are true. It's not people. I don't know what that is, but let's just show you how easy it is to really install this. With the spare tire out of the way, use a T20 Torx and remove the third brake light assembly. Carefully remove the light harness and unplug the light. Now save the light, we'll use it later. Using a 13mm socket, remove the 8 tire lug carrier bolts. Keep track of the bolts, we'll use them later as well. Wipe any dirt and grime off the door so you'll have a nice clean install on that new carrier. In the tire carrier kit, you'll find 2 metal spacers and 4 rubber gaskets. The metal spacers will be used on the passenger or hinge side of the gate, along with 2 of the rubber gaskets. The other gaskets will be used on the remaining legs of the carrier. Start with one of the upper legs of the carrier. Match up the metal shims or spacers along with an insulator so that the rubber is against the door, followed by the spacer, then the carrier. Use 2 of the original bolts and just start them, but don't tighten them yet. It's kind of a juggling act, but once you have a couple of bolts started, move to the other lower leg and start 2 more bolts with the shim and insulator positioned as above. Slide the rubber gasket between the carrier and the door on the remaining legs. Now make sure you start all the bolts before tightening any of the bolts. Once they're all started, go ahead and final tighten. Slide the tire mount into the carrier and let's take a look at the adjustments. The 4 sets of holes in the mounting plate are for various tire sizes. The lower set of holes are for stock or standard Jeep spares. The next set of holes are for 33-inch tires, followed by a 35-inch tire similar to what we'll be installing today. And finally, there's a set of holes for a 37-inch tire. Now this is the part where the announcer talks real fast and says, TeraFlex and its affiliates only recommend a 35-inch tire due to unknown factors such as driving styles and conditions. We are in no way responsible, liable, or at fault for any damage caused by an operator believing his vehicle to be a tank, U-boat, or aircraft. It is in no way TeraFlex's responsibility if you drive like Daisy Duke and trash your tailgate. The wheel studs are not installed in the tire mount because of the various tire size options. The studs do need to be pressed into the mount. Now using a hammer to drive the studs in, although satisfying, may result in a loose stud, and a loose stud will tend to spin in the bracket when removal of the spare is required. We recommend using a press and pushing the studs in. Or, for those of you without a press in your driveway, try the following technique. Find an oversized stack of washers, or a spacer of some kind, even a large lug nut will do, and use it as a surface to push against. With the stud in the appropriate tire size hole, slide the spacer you've chosen over the wheel stud and use a little grease on the threads of the stud and probably between the spacer and the lug nut as well. Thread the lug nut onto the stud and tighten it against the spacer you're using. Now an air gun will really speed up the process, but you will be able to pull the wheel stud into place with hand tools as well. Each spare will require different spacing. The design of our new carrier allows for infinite tire to gate adjustment. You'll be able to run the tire as tight to the gate as you'd like. To get an idea of where to position the tire mount, use anything that is relatively straight and lay it on the tire to represent the surface of the tailgate. Now in this case, we used a broom handle. With the measuring tape, we measured from the hub mounting surface of the rim to the bottom of the broom handle. We also measured from the mounting plate to the lower part of the carrier. You will find the tire will contact the carrier before it touches the door. There are 2 hub mount adjuster bolts in the kit. We'll be using both bolts to ensure a tight rattle-free carrier. Depending on your spare, you may find that only one of the bolts will actually fit into the slotted adjuster hole in the tire mounting plate. Now that will work fine. The single bolt will act as a safety on the carrier, preventing the tire from ever coming loose, even in the event of a loose clamp bolt. The second bolt will be installed behind the tire mount adjustment and provide additional clamping force, eliminating any rattle potential. Once we have our tire mounted in its preliminary position, we can snug the clamp bolts and do a test fit on the spare. With the spare installed, go ahead and tighten the lug nuts, making sure there is not too much pressure on the tire to tailgate contact points. We're looking for a snug fit without stressing any of the mounts. This last step is optional. However, a third brake light is mandatory in many areas. We will use the original brake light in a slightly modified state. All we need to do is trim the mounting bracket from the light assembly. Using a handsaw or a cutoff wheel, trim off the bracket so it's flush with the light. There's really nothing to measure, just make it look good. Use the original hardware from the light and bolt the light to the third brake light bracket. The 2 studs on the bracket will fit into the remaining lug holes in the wheel. Route the light harness in an attractive fashion and plug it in. That's it. I'm Dennis Wood, and I approve this message.